This is an Algebra 1 sample question from the Fall 2013 sample materials. If the quadratic formula is used to find the roots of the equation x squared minus 6x minus 19 is equal to 0, the correct roots are. So we have to solve this using the quadratic formula. You do not need to memorize the quadratic formula. It will be given to you on the Regent. The quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That means that wherever we have an a in our equation, so let's rewrite our equation. In our equation, a is equal to 1. A is always the coefficient of the x squared term. If there is no coefficient, then we assume that it's a 1. B, in this case, is negative 6. B is always the coefficient of the x term. And C, in this case, is negative 19. C is always a constant. This whole thing is equal to 0. So in our formula, we're going to plug in wherever we see an A. We're going to plug in our value for A, which is 1. Wherever we see a B, we're going to plug in our value for B, which is negative 6. A number always comes with a sign before it. And wherever we see a C, we're going to plug in our value for C, which is negative 19. Let's do that. X is equal to negative b, which in this case is negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b, which is negative 6, squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 19. That whole thing is over 2 times a, which is 1. Let's simplify. X is equal to negative 6, which is positive 6, plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared is 36, minus 4 times 1 times minus 19. Let's do that on the calculator. 76, positive 76. And that whole thing is over 2 times 1, which is just 2. Let's simplify. X is equal to 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 plus 76 is 112 over 2. Is the square root of 112 a perfect square? Let's try it. It is not. We have to put this in simplest radical form. To do that, if you don't remember, you could look back on the videos on that. But to do that, we need to find the prime factorization of 112. Prime factorization of 112, we need to divide 112 by the smallest number that goes into it that's not 1, and that would be 2. 112 divided by 2 is 56. We need to divide 56 by the smallest number that goes into it that's not 1, and that's 2. 56 divided by 2 is 28. We need to find the smallest number that goes into 28 that's not 1, and that would be 2. 28 divided by 2 is 14. We need the smallest number that goes into 14 that's not 1. That's 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. We need to choose all of our doubles. In this case, our doubles are 2 and 2, and 2 and 2. We take one of each of our doubles, and we take it out. So we have 2 and then another 2. We leave our single inside. And now let's just transcribe the whole equation. 6 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 7 over 2. Let's simplify this. 6 plus or minus 2 times 2 is 4, square root of 7, over 2. Can we simplify this? Let's rewrite this as 6 over 2, plus or minus 4 square root of 7 over 2. 6 over 2 is just 3. This is 3 plus or minus 4 square root of 7 over 2 is 2 square root of 7. These would be our roots. This is where the equation would cross the x-axis. Let's look at our answer choices. And this is choice 1, which is the answer to the question. 3 plus or minus 2 square root of 7.